crimson quilt beneath me with all my strength. Just a second ago, I had watched my husband, Ryan Carter, pushed from a high rise by his childhood sweetheart, Lily White. The next second, I was reborn, back 20 years earlier, on the night of our bridal chamber. He sat at the edge of the bed, still in his pressed military uniform, not yet changed. A chill radiated from him so strongly it nearly froze me in place. But I knew what burned beneath that uniform: a blazing chest and a heart that loved me to the point of madness. In my last life, I feared him, avoided him, misunderstood him, until it ended with our family destroyed and our lives in ruins. In this life, I would tease him, love him, take him down, and drive everyone who had harmed us into the dust. Come here. His cold, commanding voice rang in my ear, sharp enough to crush me. I jolted awake. The first thing I saw was the bright red double happiness character on the wall, and beneath me, a brand new cotton quilt. The air was filled with the faint scent of soap and a man's sweat. Hadn't Lily White pushed me off that building to my death? A man in uniform sat at the edge of the bed, his face turned away from me. His shoulders were broad, his waist lean, his sharp black eyes like an eagle's, piercing cold enough to reach my soul. It was Ryan Carter, my husband of 20 years, whom I had misunderstood for just as long. In my past life, I had believed Lily's poisonous words. I thought Ryan had only married me out of gratitude, that the woman he truly loved was her. So I feared him, hid from him, and even after his death, I handed over his pension to Lily, begging her to let me and my child survive. But in the end, she took all my money, drove my parents to their deaths, and sneered in my face, saying Ryan had never loved me. Yet the letter he had left me wasn't a divorce agreement. It was his savings from years of service and a passionate love letter. Now Ryan looked at me, my stunned expression making his voice turn even colder, filled with the sharp command of a soldier. "Do you not want this marriage?" Before he could finish, I sprang up like a cannonball, hurling myself into his hard waist, clinging to him with all my might. I do want to marry you. I want it more than anything." I buried my face against his solid chest, greedily breathing in his scent, tears streaming down and soaking his uniform. Ryan's body stiffened instantly, hard as stone. He must have thought I would cry like last time, begging to be freed from a forced marriage. After all, everyone knew he had leveraged saving my father's life to marry me. Everyone in the compound mocked me, saying a country girl like me didn't deserve a rising star like him. Even I believed it. But living again, I finally understood. Gratitude? Force? All lies. This man had cared for me since the moment he first saw me in the countryside. To marry me, he had rejected the daughter of a high-ranking commander and borne immense pressure alone. I clung to him, sobbing like a child, part regret, part grief, but mostly the wild joy of having him back. Ryan clearly had never seen me like this. He was completely at a loss, his hands awkwardly hovering before finally settling stiffly on my back, patting it lightly. "Stop crying," he said. His tone was still firm, but beneath it was a clumsy tenderness. When I finally lifted my swollen eyes to him, my voice was thick with tears. "Ryan Carter, do you think I'm being dramatic?" He said nothing, his brows furrowing tighter, his deep gaze full of suspicion, as if trying to figure out what on earth I was up to. His lips, always pressed in a stern line, moved slightly as though choosing his words. In my past life, this was when he had said, "If you don't want this, I'll send you home tomorrow." I stared at his lips, my heart pounding in my throat. This time, I couldn't let him say it. I rose on my toes and, under his shocked gaze, pressed my trembling lips against his, clumsily silencing the words that would have cut me again. A brief, tentative kiss, gone in an instant. The entire room froze. Ryan's body went even more rigid than before, his eyes wide in shock, like a wild beast ambushed without warning. His eyes were filled with disbelief, and his ears turned red from the base upward, the color spreading across his handsome face. So this iron-blooded soldier, decisive on the battlefield, was actually this pure and innocent. I laughed secretly inside, but outwardly put on a look of grievance mixed with stubbornness. With a hoarse voice, I said, "Ryan Carter, listen carefully. I was foolish before, I didn't know any better, but from today on, I, Emma, am your wife. In life, I am yours, in death, I am your ghost. Whoever dares to talk nonsense about us, I'll tear their mouth apart." Every word I spoke landed heavily in Ryan's heart. He looked at me, his gaze complicated, part probing, part doubtful, and with a trace of deep joy I almost overlooked. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed, his voice even rougher than before. "Are you serious?" "More real than gold," I answered firmly, staring at him with burning eyes. To make it more convincing, I raised 2 fingers and mimicked the way villagers swore oaths. "If I'm lying, then may I never see you again." The moment the words left my mouth, Ryan's face changed. He grabbed my hand, his grip so strong I thought he would crush my bones, and barked, "Don't you dare say that." His dark eyes swirled with a fear so raw he probably didn't even realize it himself. I knew I had struck his deepest terror. In my past life, he had died in action, and we had been torn apart forever. My heart ached terribly as I turned my hand to clasp his burning palm, pressing it against my cheek. In a soft, soothing voice, I whispered, "All right, I won't say it again. But do you want me?" I tilted my head up, gazing at him with bright, trusting eyes, like a little kitten waiting to be loved. Moonlight streamed through the window, softening the sharp edges of his face. His long, tense jaw seemed to ease just a little. He stayed silent for so long that I thought he might push me away again. Finally, he spoke, his voice carrying a helpless sigh. "You silly girl." Then he bent down and a scorching kiss, tinged with tobacco and soap, landed heavily on my forehead. The kiss was clumsy and awkward, yet it carried an unquestionable sense of possession. Afterward, he looked at me, dark eyes roiling with emotions I couldn't decipher. Word by word, he asked, "Emma, who exactly are you?" His gaze was so sharp it felt like it could strip away my flesh and see the reborn soul hidden within me. My heart lurched. I almost thought I was exposed, but I quickly calmed myself. After living a second life, I had grown a thick skin. I blinked, deliberately putting on an innocent yet aggrieved look. "Of course I'm Emma, your brand new wife. What, we just got married and you're already trying to deny it? Isn't that what city people call a scumbag?" That word was new for this era, and Ryan clearly hadn't heard it before. But from my tone, he could tell it wasn't anything good. His brows furrowed, his ears turned red again, and he looked more embarrassed than angry. "Nonsense. When did I ever deny it? You literally just asked me who I was." I accused, righteous and indignant. Ryan faltered, momentarily speechless. He must have thought back to how cold he had been toward me before marriage, compared to how suddenly passionate I was now. The drastic change had clearly unsettled him. Watching him struggle for words, I was secretly overjoyed. This man, feared as a ruthless commander outside, was rendered tongue-tied at home by just one sentence from me. So adorable. I decided to press my advantage, wrapping my arms around his neck and clinging to him like a vine. In the softest voice, I spoke the boldest words. "Captain Carter, a spring night is worth 1,000 gold coins. Let's not waste any time, all right?" The moment the words left my mouth, I felt his entire body tense like a drawn bow. His Adam's apple moved up and down, and his breathing grew heavier. Just as I thought he might take me right then and there, 2 sharp knocks sounded at the door. A delicate saccharine voice followed. "Ryan, are you asleep? My mom made some brown sugar eggs for you and your wife." I brought them over. It was lily white. The warmth in my heart instantly froze to ice. Speak of the devil. In my past life, she had done the exact same thing, knocking on our door on our wedding night, carrying a bowl of brown sugar eggs, fussing over Ryan while throwing subtle barbs at me. Every word of hers had hinted that a country bumpkin like me wasn't worthy of Ryan Carter. Her words had stabbed at my insecurities, making me feel even smaller. That night, Ryan had driven her out, but the thorn she left behind pierced my heart for 20 years. This time, I wasn't going to let her succeed. Ryan's brow furrowed so tightly it could crush a fly. Without a thought, he was about to tell her off, but I quickly pressed his hand down and shook my head. Then I lifted a sweet smile and said in a voice loud enough to carry, "Oh, it's Lily, isn't it? Thank you so much. We were just about to rest. Ryan, hurry and open the door. Don't leave the young lady waiting outside." I deliberately put extra emphasis on we and rest, my tone intimate and suggestive. Ryan gave me a surprised look, clearly puzzled by why I'd let her in. I winked at him playfully, signaling him to trust me. Though confused, he chose to believe me. I got up and opened the door. Lily walked in gracefully, holding a porcelain bowl. She had clearly dressed up today. wearing a fitted floral blouse with 2 glossy braids draped over her chest. Her face bore just the right touch of a caring smile. "Ryan," she said sweetly, not even sparing me a glance as she handed the bowl directly to him. "You must be exhausted after a full day of training. Drink this while it's hot. It'll replenish your strength. And you too, Emma. Women in the compound should know how to take care of their men." The way she said it, it was as if she were the true mistress of this home. In my past life, her words had made my face burn with shame, wishing I could sink through the floor. But now, I only smiled, stepped forward, and took the bowl from her hands to set it on the table. Then I slipped my arm through Ryan's and said warmly, "Lily, you really are so thoughtful. Practically a modern-day Florence Nightingale. Unlike me, I'm clumsy and useless. I'll have to learn from you how to take proper care of our Ryan." I made sure to draw out, "Our Ryan, sweet as honey." Lily's smile faltered, her face stiffening for just a second. Ryan stood off to the side, arms crossed, leaning casually against the doorframe, watching me play this little game. His gaze was full of amusement. He didn't say a word, but the small motion of his fingers tapping against his arm betrayed that he was deep in thought, quietly enjoying the show. Lily quickly regained her composure, taking my hand and speaking with false sincerity. "Emma, don't say that. We're family. There's no need to talk about who serves who. Ryan has a cold temperament. If you ever feel wronged, don't bottle it up. You can always come to me. I'll help talk to him for you." Her skill at reading between the lines could have made her a famous influencer in later times. On the surface, her words sounded caring, but in truth, every sentence was meant to sow discord. She hinted that Ryan treated me poorly while setting herself up as the warm, caring older sister. I sneered inwardly but outwardly put on a look of tearful gratitude. "Really? That's wonderful. Lily, you're truly like family to me. Honestly, I've just married into this home and I feel so insecure. I don't know how to do anything, and Ryan is so outstanding. I'm always afraid I'll embarrass him, that I won't be worthy of him." As I spoke, I squeezed out just the right amount of tears, looking pitiful and delicate. A flicker of smugness flashed in Lily's eyes. She patted my hand comfortingly. "Emma, don't think like that. Feelings can't be forced, as long as you..." Before she could finish, I suddenly dropped to my knees with a loud thud. "Lily, since you care so much about us, I have a favor to beg of you." Both Lily and Ryan, who had been silently watching, stiffened in shock. "What are you doing? Get up right now." Lily's face went pale with fright, and she hurried to pull me up, but I clung to her hand stubbornly, refusing to rise. Through sobs, I cried out, "Lily, I know you and Ryan grew up together. You understand him better than I do. You know how to care for him. I'm clumsy. I can't take good care of him. Why don't you handle Ryan's daily needs from now on? Please don't refuse, or it will mean you look down on me, your sister-in-law." My voice wasn't loud, but it was enough for the neighbors still awake in the corridor to hear every word. On the surface, it sounded like I was entrusting her. It was a trap. In this era, for an unmarried woman to take care of a married man's personal needs would ruin her reputation if word got out. Lily's face turned white, then green, then red, shifting colors like a painter's palette. If she agreed, she'd be shameless. If she refused, she'd rip off her own mask of kindness. "Emma, you must be joking," she stammered, trying to pull her hand back. "I'm not joking. I mean it." I gripped her hand tighter, crying harder. "If you refuse, then it means you despise me for being a country girl, that Ryan despises me too." Still sobbing, I turned pleading eyes toward Ryan. Ryan nearly burst out laughing, but managed to hold it in. He strode over, scooped me into his arms, and held me tight. His face darkened as he turned to Lily, his voice icy in a way I had never heard before. "Lily White, did you understand my wife's words? From now on, anything about me, or about my wife, is none of your concern. It's late. Please leave." The force in his embrace was overwhelming, as if he were declaring to the world that I was his and his alone. Lily froze, stunned. She looked at us clinging tightly to each other, then at Ryan's cold, unyielding eyes, and finally realized she had hit an immovable wall tonight. Her face went ashen, her lips trembling before she fled in humiliation. Leaning against Ryan's chest, I watched her back disappear down the corridor and finally allowed myself a victorious smile. "Lily, this is only the beginning. Everything you owed me in the last life, I'll make you pay back double." Above me came a soft, low chuckle. I looked up to meet Ryan's gaze, his dark eyes now glimmering with amusement. "You." He tapped the tip of my nose, his tone full of indulgence. "Such a sharp-tongued little fox." I snorted softly and nuzzled against him. "Do you like it?" He didn't answer in words. Instead, he lowered his head and sealed my lips with a scorching, lingering kiss. This kiss was no longer tentative but stormy, almost devouring me whole. I knew from this moment on, this man was completely mine now. But just as our passion was building, Ryan suddenly stopped. He was breathing hard, sweat beading on his forehead as he looked at me, his eyes filled with a trace of struggle. "What's wrong?" I asked in confusion. He took a deep breath, as if making a firm decision, and said hoarsely, "Emma, there's something I have to tell you. Next month I'll be sent on a classified mission. It will last 3 months, and the outcome is uncertain, life or death." His words were like a bucket of ice water poured over me from head to toe, instantly sobering me. Classified mission. 3 months. Life or death, unknown. Those words together cut into my heart like a poisoned blade. Yes, this was the mission. In my last life, not long after our wedding, he had received the same assignment. At the time, I had been quarreling with him because of Lily's poisonous words. I ignored his departure, even thought it was good he was leaving so I could have some peace. Before he left, he had wanted to hold me, but I avoided him with a cold face. I would never forget the wounded, lonely look in his eyes. And then he left, never to return. 3 months later, the army delivered a flag-draped urn of ashes. So that so-called uncertain fate had always been a doomed ending. "No, I won't let history repeat itself. I won't let you go." I almost screamed, clutching his arms so tightly my nails dug deep into his skin. Ryan clearly hadn't expected me to react so violently. He froze for a moment, then pulled me into his embrace, wrapping my trembling body tightly against his broad chest. He spoke gently, trying to soothe me. "Emma, listen. This is an order I have to obey." "I don't care about orders." I pounded on his chest like a madwoman, tears streaming uncontrollably. "Ryan, you can't go. If you go, you won't come back. You'll die." In my desperation, I shouted out the secret of my rebirth. The air froze instantly. Ryan seized my flailing hands, his black eyes locking onto mine with a dangerous intensity. His voice was taut, filled with threat. "Say that again. How do you know I'll die?" My heart dropped. I realized I had said the wrong thing. How could I explain? That I was the ghost of his wife from 20 years in the future? He would only think I'd lost my mind. My brain raced, scrambling for an excuse. I had nightmares," I blurted out, crying even harder. "For the past few nights, I kept dreaming of you, covered in blood, lying motionless on the ground. Ryan, I'm terrified. I'm so scared." I sobbed until I was breathless, like nothing more than a young wife shaken by nightmares. The suspicion in Ryan's eyes slowly faded, replaced by deep, aching tenderness. He pulled me tightly against him, pressing his chin to the top of my head as he kissed my hair again and again. "Silly girl, dreams are always the opposite," he murmured, his voice low, steady, and soothing. "Don't be afraid. I promise you. I'll come back alive to see you. I swear it." But he had promised the same in my last life, and broken that promise with his death. I couldn't entrust his life to empty words. I had to do something to stop him. The next morning, before dawn had even broken, Ryan rose and went out for drills. I lay awake in bed, eyes wide open, having not slept a wink, my mind a tangled mess. My mind was filled with ways to stop him from going on that mission. Pretending to be sick wouldn't work. The army had doctors who would see through it instantly. Making a scene with his superiors was even worse. That would only be seen as unreasonable troublemaking and might damage his record, making things harder for him. What should I do? Just when I was at a loss, Ryan's mother, Mrs. Zhao, walked in carrying a bowl of millet porridge. She was the typical elder of a military family compound, stern, rigid, with a trace of criticism in her eyes. In my past life, she had never approved of me, a daughter-in-law from the countryside. She thought I was petty and unpresentable, and she never missed a chance to show me her disdain. She had played no small part in worsening my relationship with Ryan. "Get up and eat," she said, setting the bowl down heavily on the table, her tone sharp. I looked at her, and suddenly a bold thought came to me. Maybe she was the breakthrough. I obediently got out of bed, took the porridge from her, and sipped it slowly. Mrs. Zhao sat by the bed, scrutinizing me for a long while before letting out a cold snort. Don't think that just because you pulled a little trick yesterday and drove Lily off, you've secured your place in this family. The Carter family doesn't acknowledge those cheap, seductive tactics. She hadn't left me even a shred of dignity. In my past life, I would have been frightened and flustered. But now I set down the bowl, lifted my head, and looked her straight in the eye. I know you don't think highly of me, I said seriously, but I am Ryan's lawful wife, written clearly in his household records. No one can change that. Mrs. Zhao clearly hadn't expected me to confront her so directly. She froze for a moment, then her face darkened. What kind of attitude is that? You've just entered this family and already you're trying to lay down rules for your mother-in-law? Mom, I'm not laying down rules, I replied calmly, though my tone carried undeniable strength. I just need to tell you something. Next month, Ryan is going on a very dangerous mission. Her face changed instantly. What did you say? It's a mission where the chance of survival is slim, I said firmly, word by word. Mom, he's your only son. Can you really bear to watch him walk to his death? Her lips trembled and deep fear flickered in her eyes. No matter how forceful she was still a mother. You're talking nonsense. That's impossible. How could you know something like this? Though she tried to deny it, her voice was already shaking. I'm not lying, I said, grasping her cold hands. Then I repeated the excuse I had given Ryan the night before, that I had dreamed it. This time, I added more detail, painting the nightmare as bloody and vivid. Mom, I know you don't believe in things like this, but what if? If Ryan really doesn't make it back, how will I live? And what about you? I spoke with tears streaming down my face, every word striking deep into her heart. Mrs. Zhao's defenses finally crumbled. She clutched my hands like they were her last lifeline. Then what should we do? Damn it, why do they send him on all the dangerous missions? Mom, only you can save him now, I urged, seizing the moment. You're his mother. If you go to his commander and plead, they'll have to consider it. Yes, I'll go find Political Commissar Wang, she said, as if waking from a trance. She shot to her feet and rushed out in a hurry. I watched her back disappear and finally let out a sigh of relief. If the matriarch of the Carter family herself went to make a scene, even if they couldn't stop Ryan's deployment entirely, at least they might reassign him to a less dangerous mission. But I was too quick to rejoice. That very afternoon, Ryan came home that afternoon with a stormy face. The moment he stepped through the door, he slammed it shut with a bang, then strode toward me step by step, his eyes burning like he could devour me alive. Emma, you've really done it this time, he ground out through clenched teeth. Who told you to push my mother to make a scene? The icy anger radiating off him made me shiver. I didn't. I tried to deny it instinctively. Didn't. Ryan let out a cold laugh, his eyes glinting with disappointment, as sharp as shattered ice, stabbing into my heart. The whole compound knows. My mother barged into Commissar Wang's office, crying and shouting that you had a nightmare, dreamed I died, and now she refuses to let me join the selection. Emma, where do you expect me to put my face? How am I supposed to face my comrades? His voice rose with each word, every question hitting my chest like a heavy hammer. I stared at his reddened eyes and his clenched fists. This time, I had truly driven him to the edge. Soldiers valued nothing more than honor and future prospects, and to keep him safe, I had forced him into the most humiliating withdrawal from an important selection. I'm sorry, I murmured, lowering my head, my voice barely louder than a mosquito's hum. I don't want to hear sorry, Ryan roared, slamming his fist onto the table. The enamel bowl jumped with a sharp, jarring clang. I want to know why. Why did you do this? Just because of a stupid nightmare? When did you become so unreasonable? The disappointment and confusion in his eyes hurt more than a slap across the face. To him, I must have looked like a deranged woman who had turned his life upside down over a meaningless dream. But he didn't know. That nightmare had been bloody reality, lived once before. How could I explain it? Tears welled in my eyes, but I forced them not to fall. Crying was useless. I drew a deep breath, lifted my head, and met his furious gaze. In a calm, steady voice I had never used before, I said, Ryan Carter, yes, I'm being unreasonable. I just don't want you to go. If you think I've disgraced you, then divorce me. Ryan froze, struck speechless. He clearly hadn't expected me to throw out the word divorce. His chest heaved with anger, and his fingers shook as he pointed at me. Good. Very good, Emma. You've really grown bold. Blazing with fury, he spun on his heel. You want a divorce? Fine. I'll make it happen. I'm going to file the report right now. The door slammed so hard behind him that the whole house shook. My knees buckled, and I collapsed into a chair. At last, tears spilled freely down my cheeks. I had ruined everything. I thought I could handle it all, but instead I had only made it worse. The warmth that had just begun to blossom between me and Ryan, I had doused it with my own hands. What should I do now? Was I really going to divorce him? No. I didn't want that. I wiped away my tears and pushed myself to my feet. I couldn't just sit here and wait for disaster. But Ryan was furious right now. If I went to him, he wouldn't listen to a word I said. I had to find another way. Something to cool his anger and show him my sincerity. My eyes fell on the enamel bowl he had smashed his fist beside. A spark of inspiration struck. I ran into the kitchen, rummaging through the cupboards until I found a little white flour and 2 eggs. In these times, such ingredients were precious. I kneaded dough, rolled skins, and cut strips, relying on faint memories from my past life to begin making dumplings. I remembered, after Ryan died in my last life, when I sorted through his belongings, one of his comrades had told me his favorite food was pork and cabbage dumplings. And yet in our 20 years of marriage, I had never once made them for him. The thought pierced my heart like a needle. This time, Ryan, I'll make sure you taste the dumplings made by my own hands. My hands were clumsy, and the dumplings came out lopsided and misshapen, each one awkward and uneven. But I didn't care. I poured all of my regret and love into those ugly dumplings. Once they hit the boiling water, they floated up one by one, round and plump. I filled a bowl to the brim, mixed a small dish of garlic and vinegar, then carried them as I knocked on the door of Ryan's comrade, Chen Gang. I knew Ryan was furious and wouldn't return home. He would definitely be hiding out at Chen's place. It was Chen's wife, Mrs. Lee, who opened the door. She looked at me in surprise. Emma, what are you doing here? News traveled fast in the compound. By now, everyone had probably heard about the scene at our house. I forced a smile that looked uglier than crying. Mrs. Lee, I'm here to find Ryan. Her face darkened with unease, and she sighed. Emma, it's not that I don't want to help you. It's just that Ryan's in a terrible mood right now. He won't listen to anyone. You should go home and wait until he cools down. I won't leave, I said stubbornly. Please, let me in. I just want to say a few words to him, then I'll go. I held out the bowl in my hands. These are dumplings I just made for him. Pork and cabbage filling. If he doesn't eat them, they'll just go to waste. Mrs. Lee looked at my swollen eyes, then at the steaming dumplings in the bowl. At last her heart softened. Ugh, what's the point of all this suffering? She sighed again and stepped aside. The moment I entered, I saw Ryan sitting at the table, drinking alone in silence. Chen Gang was beside him, pacing anxiously, clearly wanting to say something but too afraid to interfere. As soon as Ryan saw me, his face darkened even more. He turned his head away, refusing to look at me, his whole posture screaming. Keep out. I said nothing. Quietly, I set the dumplings in front of him, placed the vinegar dish, and arranged everything neatly. What are you doing here? He finally said, his voice so cold it was brittle. Didn't you want a divorce? I'll have the papers ready for you tomorrow. I sniffled softly but ignored his sharp words. Instead, I picked up a dumpling with my chopsticks, dipped it in vinegar, and held it to his lips. Try it. See if it tastes good. My voice was quiet, trembling almost imperceptibly. Ryan's body went rigid. He stared at the dumpling, then at me, a flicker of complex emotion flashing in his eyes. Sensing the moment, Chen and Mrs. Lee quietly slipped out, closing the door behind them. Now it was just the two of us. I don't want it, Ryan muttered, turning his head away like a sulking child. Just try one. Only one. I held the chopsticks steady, refusing to pull back. If you don't like it, I'll never make them again. We sat in that silent standoff for what felt like forever. At last he relented, turning his head and opening his mouth. He bit down almost roughly, chewing slowly, his brow furrowed as though tasting some rare delicacy. I watched him nervously, my heart lodged in my throat. Well, He didn't answer. Instead, he took the chopsticks from my hand and without another word began eating, dumpling after dumpling, until he had finished the entire bowl, even draining the soup to the last drop. When he finally set the bowl down, he lifted his head and looked at me with a gaze I had never seen before, deep, burning, his eyes rimmed red. "You knew," he rasped hoarsely. My heart lurched. What did he mean by that? Had he discovered my secret? I forced myself to stay calm, blinking innocently. Knew what? Ryan's sharp, hawk-like eyes now brimmed with emotions too tangled to untangle. Gratitude, heartache, and something I couldn't quite name. There was also a trace of sorrow in his eyes that I couldn't understand. But he didn't press me. Instead, he lifted his rough, calloused hand and gently cupped my cheek, his thumb brushing the corner of my red, tear-stained eye. "Silly girl," he sighed. The anger in his voice was gone, leaving only helplessness and tender affection. "Don't ever do something so foolish again." I knew then that this bowl of dumplings had explained everything. He understood that I cared about him, that I was terrified of losing him, and that was why I had chosen such a clumsy, desperate way to stop him. The icy wall between us melted quietly without a sound. "Are you still mad at me?" I asked carefully. "Of course I'm mad," he replied, though his hands were unbearably gentle. "Mad that you don't take care of yourself? Mad that you tossed around the word divorce like it meant nothing." "That was just in the heat of the moment," I rushed to explain. "I know." He pulled me into his arms, holding me tight, his chin resting on the top of my head. "But you're never allowed to say it again. Not a single word." I buried my face against his broad chest, nodding hard, greedily breathing in the scent of him that soothed my heart. The storm had finally passed. Ryan didn't withdraw from the selection in the end, but he promised me it was only a selection, not a guarantee he'd be chosen for the most dangerous mission. He said he would give it his all, but he would also cherish his life. I chose to believe him. Life seemed to return to normal. Ryan left early and came back late every day for training, while I began plotting my money-making plan. I couldn't live like in my past life, looked down upon as nothing more than a housewife. I needed a career of my own, something that would give me the confidence to stand beside Ryan as his equal. More importantly, I needed money. A lot of money. I knew that part of the reason Ryan's mission had failed in my last life wasn't just the danger itself, it was also the outdated equipment. If I could make enough money, and through certain channels, get them better gear, maybe I could change his fate. Once that idea appeared, it took root in my heart and grew wildly. But in this era, how could a rural woman with no connections and no capital possibly earn money? After much thought, I decided to start with what I knew best: fashion design. In my past life, though I had muddled along, I'd studied tailoring for a few years under an old seamstress to help support the family. Later, I had also worked in a garment factory for a while, so I knew a little about clothing design and production. More importantly, I had come from 20 years in the future. I knew what styles would become hits in the decades to come. Bell-bottoms, batwing tops, leggings. Things that might look bizarre now, but would one day lead the fashion trends. I decided to start with bell-bottoms. Once I made up my mind, I acted quickly. I pulled out a piece of fine fabric from my dowry, my mother's treasured cloth, meant for a new dress. Using the memory in my mind, I sketched a design, then carefully began cutting and sewing. Without a sewing machine, I stitched each piece by hand, one needle at a time. For days, I shut myself in my room, spending every hour outside of meals and sleep on those pants. My hands were pricked with countless tiny holes, the pain sharp and piercing, but my heart was full of hope. One day, as I was bent over my work, the door suddenly swung open. Lily White glided in gracefully, followed by several other military wives from the compound. Well, Emma," Lily's voice dripped with mockery. "What are you up to in here? You've been hiding away for days. We thought you were sick. Turns out you've been busy with needlework." One of them, Mrs. Wang, craned her neck for a look at what I was holding. The moment her eyes landed on it, she let out an exaggerated cry. "Oh my God, what kind of pants are those? Why are the pant legs so wide? They look like a mop. How could anyone wear these outside?" "Exactly, they're too strange," another military wife chimed in. "Emma, you'd better not mess around with clothes. In our compound, we value simplicity and modesty. If you wear something like that in public, you'll embarrass Captain Carter." Lily pinched her lips together, pretending to be concerned. "Emma, they're just looking out for you. Ryan is at such a critical stage in his career. You can't let something like this drag him down." One after another, they sang the same tune, each word aimed at belittling and suppressing me. In my past life, it was under their so-called kind advice that I gave up all of my ideas and hobbies, turning into a lifeless puppet who followed rules without a soul. But this time, I refused. I set down my needle and thread, lifted my head, and smiled brightly. "You're mistaken, sisters. These are called bell-bottoms. They're the most popular style in Hong Kong right now. It's normal if you don't understand." My tone carried a confidence that brooked no doubt, leaving them speechless. Lily's face darkened, but she quickly forced a smile. "Emma, I know you're young and love chasing fashion, but these pants are far too ahead of their time. No one around here would dare wear them." "Who says no one would dare?" I stood up, holding the newly finished pair of bell-bottoms against myself. "I dare." Right in front of them, I changed into the pants. I paired them with a fitted white blouse tucked neatly into the high-waisted blue bell-bottoms. The trousers hugged my hips perfectly, accentuating my slender waist, while the wide legs swayed gracefully as I moved, making me look taller and effortlessly stylish. The room went silent. Everyone stared at me, eyes wide with shock and awe. Even Lily, who had been waiting eagerly to laugh at me, couldn't hide the flash of jealousy in her gaze. She had always considered herself the fashion leader of the compound, but compared to me in these clothes, her floral blouse looked hopelessly outdated. "Well?" I twirled with a smile. "How do I look?" No one answered. "I think you look amazing," a clear voice suddenly came from the doorway. We all turned our heads. Ryan was leaning casually against the doorframe, arms crossed, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. In his deep eyes was open, unrestrained admiration and pride. I didn't know when he had returned or how long he had been watching. He strode over with his long legs, walked straight to my side, and slipped his arm around my waist in front of everyone. "My wife looks good in anything she wears." His gaze burned into me, so intense it nearly melted me. "Wear it just like this. I love it." Then his eyes swept over Lily and the other wives, his tone turning cold. "Emma is my wife. What she wears, what she does. It's not for outsiders to dictate." The words were sharp and domineering, shutting every mouth in the room. Lily's face turned red, then pale, twisting with humiliation. She must never have imagined that the public spectacle she had plotted to shame me would turn into a display of affection between Ryan and me. Watching her tremble with anger yet unable to lash out filled me with sheer delight. After they all left in defeat, Ryan finally released me, though he still kept me close in the circle of his arm. He lowered his head to my ear and whispered in a voice meant only for me, "The pants are nice. But your waist? It's so small, I can wrap one hand around it." His breath was hot against my ear, tickling and burning, and my face turned bright red in an instant. What was wrong with this man? Where was the aloof, restrained Captain Carter I had known before? Why was he suddenly saying things so shameless? They made my face burn and my heart race. "You! What nonsense are you spouting?" I pushed him shyly, but he caught my hand, lifted it to his lips, and kissed it. His dark eyes gleamed with teasing amusement. "Don't you already know my measurements better than anyone?" Boom! My face instantly went up in flames. I wanted to crawl into a hole, but before I could, he suddenly grew serious. "Emma, can you make another pair of these pants?" "Huh?" I froze. "You want to wear them?" The image of Ryan in bell-bottoms flashed through my mind, and I couldn't help but burst out laughing. "What are you thinking?" He tapped my forehead in mock irritation. "My sister is coming home from the art troupe next week. I want to give her a gift." Ryan's younger sister, Lauren Carter. My heart skipped a beat. In my past life, she and I had been like fire and water. She thought I was rustic, unworthy of her brother, and every time we met, her words dripped with mockery. But now, this was my chance. "All right," I agreed quickly. "I'll make sure your sister looks absolutely stunning." Not only would I win over my mother-in-law and my husband, but I'd conquer the most difficult hurdle of all, my sister-in-law. The day Lauren came home was a weekend. Ryan and I went together to the train station to meet her. From afar, I spotted a lively young girl with a high ponytail. She wore a faded military uniform, but her youthful beauty couldn't be hidden. A large, green duffel bag hung over her shoulder as she walked toward the exit. It was Lauren Carter. Just like before, when her eyes landed on me, the warmth instantly cooled. She gave me only a restrained nod, barely a greeting, before eagerly looping her arm through Ryan's and chattering away. "Ryan, you're too much. How could you not tell me about something as big as your wedding?" I came back only to find the whole compound laughing, saying I suddenly have a sister-in-law from the countryside. She said it loudly on purpose, every word meant for my ears. Ryan's brows furrowed immediately. His voice dropped cold. "Lauren, is that how you speak to your sister-in-law? Am I wrong?" She pouted, dissatisfied. Her critical gaze swept me up and down, finally landing on the bell-bottoms I had chosen to wear today. The disdain in her expression only deepened. "Ryan, look at what she's wearing. Such weird clothes. Aren't you embarrassed?" "I think she looks great," Ryan said firmly, his tone leaving no room for doubt. "Your sister-in-law made those herself. She even made you a pair. Consider it a welcome gift." With that, he handed her the paper bag he was carrying. Lauren accepted it reluctantly, but when she peeked inside and saw a pair of bell-bottoms just like mine, only pink, her eyes lit up instantly. Girls from the art troupe had a natural weakness for anything trendy. Though she muttered, "Who would wear such strange pants?" her hands betrayed her, carefully folding the trousers and holding onto them tightly. Back at the house, she claimed she didn't want them, but her actions said otherwise. The moment she could, she ran off to her room and changed. When she came out wearing the pink bell-bottoms paired with a crisp white blouse, everyone was stunned. Even my mother-in-law, Mrs. Zhao, who had always disapproved of me. "Oh my, Lauren, you look just like a movie star stepping out of a magazine." Mrs. Zhao circled her daughter several times, her face glowing with pride. Lauren, delighted, preened in front of the mirror, her joy impossible to hide. Seizing the chance, I stepped forward with a smile. "It's really all thanks to Lauren's natural beauty and figure. She looks amazing in anything. Flattery never fails." Sure enough, her expression softened, and though she still didn't treat me warmly, at least her words lost their barbed edge. At dinner, I went all out, preparing a full table of dishes: braised pork, sweet and sour fish. The dishes, candied sweet potatoes, braised pork, sweet and sour fish, were all things I'd learned in my past life from Ryan's comrades, meals he and his sister had loved since childhood. Lauren ate until her little mouth was shiny with oil. The hostility in her eyes slowly faded, replaced by curiosity. For once, instead of disappearing to her room right after dinner, she actually spoke to me. "Hey, where did you buy those pants?" I knew then the fish had bitten the hook. Smiling, I said, "I didn't buy them. I made them myself. If you like, I'll make you a few more styles." "Really?" Her eyes lit up instantly, though suspicion quickly followed. "Wait, you must want something from me." "What could I possibly want?" I put on a wounded look. "You're my sister-in-law. Isn't it natural for me to make you clothes?" The more selfless I appeared, the less she believed me. That night, she snuck into our room, pulling Ryan aside and whispering, "Tell me the truth. Did she trick you? She gave me pants, cooked for me. People don't act that nice for nothing." Ryan couldn't help but laugh at her serious little face. He tapped her forehead. "What nonsense are you thinking? Your sister-in-law is just like that, sharp tongue, soft heart. If she's good to you, accept it." "I don't buy it," Lauren huffed, folding her arms. "She's only buttering me up because you've got a bright future. She wants to get on your good side, so she's cozying up to me." Listening by the door, I nearly laughed out loud. This girl really was clever. She wasn't wrong. I was trying to win her over. But not for the reason she thought. I wasn't doing it to flatter Ryan. I was laying the foundation for my money-making plan. Lauren's world at the art troupe was full of fashionable, beauty-loving girls with money to spend. She was my perfect live advertisement and sales channel. The next day, as Lauren prepared to return to her unit, I slipped 2 shirts I'd rushed to finish into her luggage, one with puffed sleeves, the other with ruffles, both sturdy, retro styles destined to be trendy. "Emma, you don't have to be this nice to me." She looked at the beautiful shirts, suddenly flustered, her eyes darting away. "Silly girl, why be polite with me?" I ruffled her hair. When you're out there, you represent the Carter family. You must look your best so no one dares look down on you. The sincerity in my voice brought tears to her eyes. Lauren had lost her father young, and Ryan had always been away in the army. Their mother was harsh and strict. No one had ever spoken to her with such warmth. "Emma?" She sniffled, and for the first time called me sister-in-law from the heart. I knew then, I had completely won her over. Once we sent Lauren off, my plan officially began. Using every bit of money Ryan had given me, 50 yuan, I managed to get a batch of fabric from the south. Then I shut myself in our room and began working like mad. Bell-bottoms, collared blouses, dresses, one hot new item after another came out of my hands. Ryan saw me staying up past midnight, dark circles under my eyes, and his heart ached. Wrapping his arms around me from behind, he pulled my hands away from the fabric. "Don't overwork yourself. If you love making clothes, then one day when I have the money, I'll open a clothing factory for you. You can sew all you want." Leaning against his chest, my heart swelled with sweetness. "All right, but you'd better work hard. My dream depends on you, Captain Carter." "Yes, ma'am," he said in a dramatic movie tone, planting a kiss on my cheek. A week later, I received a letter from Lauren. Besides the usual greetings, it contained a 200 yuan money order and a long list of orders. "Sister-in-law, your clothes are amazing." As soon as I wore them back to the troop, all the girls went crazy for them. They all want to buy some. "This is the deposit I collected. See if you can make a few more for them." I wrote down the styles and sizes on the back. When I saw that long list of orders and the 200 yuan payment, I nearly jumped out of my skin with excitement. I'd done it. My very first earnings were in hand. In this era, when the average monthly salary was only 30 or 40 yuan, 200 was a staggering sum. Clutching the money order, I ran straight to the training grounds, eager to share the good news with Ryan. But before I even got close, I saw the place surrounded by people, the air thick with tension. A bad feeling seized me. I pushed my way into the crowd, and there stood Deputy Commander Li Weiguo, one of Ryan's rivals for the selection slot. He was jabbing a finger in Ryan's face, shouting furiously, "Ryan Carter, you despicable man. Just for a spot in the selection you stoop to such vile tricks? I'm telling you, I won't let this go." On the ground between them lay a stretcher covered with a white cloth. Beneath it was the outline of a body. Dark blood seeped slowly through the fabric. My stomach dropped to the floor. "What happened?" I grabbed a soldier beside me, my voice urgent. The soldier's face was full of grief. "Sister-in-law, it was Zhang Hao. He fell during obstacle training when the rope suddenly snapped. He's gone." Zhang Hao, one of Ryan's men. He was only 18, a boy with dimples that showed whenever he smiled. The rope snapped. My mind latched onto the detail immediately. Training equipment was always inspected before and after use. How could it suddenly fail? Ryan stood rigid, his face as dark as iron, his fists clenching until his knuckles cracked. But he didn't say a word, enduring Li Weiguo's stream of curses. I knew his temperament. He disdained defending himself in moments like this. But I couldn't let him take the blame for nothing. I pushed through the crowd until I reached his side and gripped his cold hand firmly. "I believe you," I said, staring into his eyes and enunciating each word. His body jolted slightly, surprise flickering across his face. He probably hadn't expected that. At a time when everyone accused him, I would stand beside him without hesitation. The ice in his eyes softened just a little. Then I turned to Li Weiguo, my voice sharp as steel. "Deputy Commander Li, you can eat recklessly, but you can't speak recklessly. You claim Ryan checked the rope. Do you have proof? Making accusations without a proper investigation? Is this your way of conducting yourself?" My words weren't loud, but each one rang clear and strong, silencing the noisy crowd. Li Weiguo faltered, then flushed with anger. "What does a woman like you know? This isn't your place to speak." "I'm Ryan Carter's wife. His business is my business." I refused to back down. "I only know that the military values truth and honor. Baseless speculation and slander not only insult Captain Carter but also disrespect the soldier who lost his life." At that, many of the soldiers around us began nodding in agreement. Li Weiguo's face flushed red, then white, left speechless by my words. Just then, Political Commissar Wang arrived at the scene. After hearing the situation, his expression grew unusually grave. This matter will be thoroughly investigated by the army. Until the results are out, no one is allowed to make reckless accusations. His voice cut through the tension like a gavel. Ryan Carter, Li Wei-guo, both of you, come with me to the office. Ryan followed him, but before leaving, he gave me a long, steady look. In his eyes, I saw gratitude, relief, and also a flicker of worry. He knew as well as I did that things were far from simple. This was no accident. It was a carefully planned trap. And the mastermind was very likely none other than Li Wei-guo, the one putting on the biggest show of outrage. In my last life, after Ryan's death, it had been Li Wei-guo who took his place and sat in the commander's chair. The more I thought about it, the colder my heart grew. No, I couldn't sit back and do nothing. I had to find evidence to prove Ryan's innocence. But how could a woman like me investigate matters inside the army? Then it struck me. Lily White. Her father was the head of the logistics department, in charge of all military supplies. If anyone could tamper with a rope unnoticed, he would be one of the prime suspects. And Lily had never stopped coveting Ryan. If Li Wei-guo promised her something in return, she might very well help him frame Ryan. The thought jolted me into action. I couldn't sit still any longer. I ran straight to Lily's house. Her mother opened the door, eyeing me with suspicion. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to see Lily," I said coldly. "She's not here." Without a second thought, Mrs. White tried to shut the door. I shoved against it, my voice edged with warning. "Auntie, I suggest you let me in. Otherwise, when the investigation team comes knocking, it won't look good for anyone." Her face changed instantly. Taking the chance, I forced my way inside. There was Lily, sitting in the living room, pale and flustered, clutching an envelope in her hand. The moment she saw me, she jumped up like a startled rabbit, instinctively trying to hide the envelope behind her back. Too late. I lunged forward and snatched it from her grasp. "What are you doing? Give it back!" Lily shrieked, rushing at me. I shoved her aside and tore open the envelope. Out spilled a stack of crisp bills and a note. On the note was a single line: "Once it's done, I'll marry you." The signature below was bold and unmistakable: Li Wei-guo. Everything was clear now. Li Wei-guo and Lily had conspired to stage the accident. One for ambition, the other to frame me and force Ryan into divorce. A perfect pair of shameless traitors. You're insane!" My whole body shook with fury. "A soldier's life, how dare you? I don't know anything. I don't." Lily screamed through her tears, still trying to deny it. "He shoved it into my hands. It has nothing to do with me." "Nothing to do with you," I sneered, waving the envelope in her face. "Then how do you explain this?" I threw the evidence down hard at the feet of mother and daughter, then turned on my heel and left. I didn't go to Commissar Wang's office. Instead, I marched straight to the Military District's Security Division. Against people like this, there could be no mercy. Only thunderous justice, leaving them no chance to rise again. An hour later, Li Wei-guo, Lily White, and her father, the logistics chief, were all taken away by security officers. With both witnesses and evidence in hand, the case was sealed. They didn't even have the chance to deny it. What awaited them was the harshest judgment of the military tribunal. Only after everything was settled did I drag my exhausted body back home. The moment I pushed open the door, I saw Ryan sitting at the table, waiting for me. On the table sat a steaming bowl of brown sugar water. As soon as he saw me, he stood up quickly, strode over, and pulled me tightly into his arms. He didn't say a word, but the trembling of his body and the strength of his embrace told me everything was over. I patted his back gently, my voice soft with comfort. "Thank you, Emma," he murmured hoarsely into the crook of my neck, his face buried against me. "Thank you for believing in me." "Fool," I whispered back. "If I don't believe you, who else would I believe?" We held each other quietly for a long time. Eventually, he released me, cupped my face in his hands, and looked at me seriously, hesitation flickering in his eyes. "Emma, there's something I don't know if I should tell you." My heart skipped. Was it another dangerous mission? I forced a smile, trying to sound light. "Go on. We're husband and wife. What could you possibly hide from me?" Ryan was silent for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. After Li Wei-guo and the others were caught, they confessed. It was true that Lily's father had swapped out the rope, but they also revealed something else. He paused, his dark eyes locking tightly onto mine. Among the soldiers who died during the last mission, there was an undercover agent we had planted inside the enemy. The mission didn't fail by accident, it was betrayed. There's a traitor among us. My heart pounded like a drum. The last mission? That was the one where, in my past life, Ryan had died. So he hadn't died because of the mission itself. He had been betrayed. The revelation exploded in my mind like a bomb. I clutched his arm so tightly, my nails turned white. The traitor. Did they catch him? Ryan shook his head, his face grim. Not yet. Li Weiguo and Lily were just pawns. They never had access to classified intelligence. All we know is the traitor's code name, Nightingale. And he's hiding right here in our compound. Nightingale. I repeated the name in my head, scanning through the faces of everyone I knew in the compound. Who could it be? In my past life after Ryan's death, who had benefited most? Li Weiguo. Yes, but there was someone else. A face flashed through my mind, always smiling gently, always so considerate. Commissar Wong. Yes. After Ryan died, Li Weiguo wore the commander's badge, but the one with true power was Commissar Wong, and he had always shown me special care in the name of looking after a martyr's widow. Looking back now, there had always been something unsettling in his gaze. Could it really have been him? A chill ran down my spine. If it was really him, then he had hidden far too deeply. Ryan, I gripped his hand tightly, speaking with conviction. You have to join this selection. He looked at me in surprise. Didn't you? I've changed, I cut him off. Before, I only feared for your safety. But now that I know the truth, I have to support you. We can't let heroes die in vain. And we can't let traitors walk free. My words lit a fire in his eyes, flames burning bright with determination. Emma, he was so moved he could barely speak. I rose on tiptoe and pressed a kiss to his lips. Do what you need to do. Don't worry about home. I've got it covered. He nodded hard, his gaze overflowing with love and gratitude. From then on, Ryan threw himself into even harsher training. And I, while managing my budding clothing business, began watching Commissar Wong's every move in secret. Thanks to Lauren's role as my living advertisement, my fashion business thrived. Orders from the art troupe poured in, more and more each day. Even art troupes from other military districts came looking for me by name. I was making money hand over fist, and within just a month I had become the most talked-about little rich wife in the entire compound. Those military wives who once looked down on me, who used to mock me, now acted overly polite every time they saw me, tripping over themselves to cozy up to me. Human nature really was that realistic. I took advantage of those shallow sisterhood ties, piecing together scraps of gossip until I had a clearer picture of Commissar Wong. I learned that his wife had been bedridden for years, relying on an expensive imported drug to survive. I learned that his son was reckless and irresponsible, drowning in gambling debts. All of these were reasons he needed money, and his motive for betrayal. But I had no evidence. I needed something solid, something undeniable, to bring him to justice. The opportunity came soon enough. One day, Commissar Wong's wife suddenly took a turn for the worse and was rushed into the military hospital. I immediately put aside my work, cooked a pot of chicken soup, and went to the hospital under the pretense of visiting an elder. Inside the ward, Commissar Wong sat haggardly by the bedside. When he saw me, he looked surprised, but still managed to squeeze out a gentle smile. Emma, that's thoughtful of you. How's Auntie? I asked as I set the chicken soup down, my voice laced with concern. The same as always. He sighed, his brow furrowed with worry. I let my gaze drift casually toward the nightstand. There it was, the imported medicine I had heard about. Uncle Wang, this illness must cost quite a lot every month, I probed gently. For a split second, his expression froze, but then he quickly recovered. The army has good benefits. Some of it can be reimbursed. He was lying. That imported drug was never covered by military insurance. With his salary, there was no way he could afford it. I sneered inside, but kept my face calm. That's good then, I said warmly. Money comes and goes. As long as Auntie is well, that's what matters most. I chatted a little more, then stood to leave. But just as I turned, I caught sight, out of the corner of my eye, of him carefully taking a small snuff bottle from his pocket. Painted on it was a bird's brow feather. He held it tightly, rubbing it with a look of reverence and dependence. It was him, I was sure of it. That snuff bottle was the token he used to contact his handler. My heart pounded wildly. I had to find a way to get that snuff bottle. Leaving the hospital, I didn't go home. Instead, I went straight to the post office and sent an urgent telegram to Lauren. Emergency. Come back immediately. 3 days later, Lauren arrived in a rush, dusty from travel. Sis-in-law, what happened? You called me back so urgently. His face was full of worry. I pulled him into the room, shut the door, and laid out everything. My suspicions, my reasoning, my plan. Lauren listened in shock, his face draining of color. Sis-in-law, you're not joking, are you? Uncle Wang, how could he possibly be a traitor? I'm not completely certain. That's why I need your help, I said firmly, looking straight into his eyes. Lauren, right now, only you can help me. My plan was simple, but dangerous. I wanted Lauren to use his position as a performer in the art troupe to get close to Commissar Wang and find a way to obtain that snuff bottle. This is too dangerous. He shook his head repeatedly, fear flashing in his eyes. What if he finds out? Believe in me, and in yourself. I clasped his cold hand, giving him a steady, encouraging look. Haven't you always wanted to be a hero, just like your brother? Now's your chance. My words lit a fire in his heart, stoking both his courage and his sense of justice. He hesitated for a long time, but finally, gritting his teeth, he nodded hard. All right, sis-in-law. We called our plan, the Prince and the Pauper. The first step was to create a reasonable excuse for Lauren to get close to Commissar Wang. The chance came quickly. The military district was set to host a joint military-civilian gala, and Commissar Wang was the chief organizer. Lauren, as the star of the art troupe, was naturally chosen as the female lead of the evening. Under the pretext of rehearsing, she had reason to visit his office every day. At first, Wang was polite, but as their interactions increased, the way he looked at Lauren began to change. It was no longer the gaze of an elder, it was the gaze of a man toward a woman, filled with both admiration and desire. I knew the fish had taken the bait. The second step was to feed his appetite. I told Lauren to casually let slip that her family was a bit short on money lately, and that she wanted to do some small business on the side. As expected, Wang offered to help her, and even hinted he could use his position to get her some scarce goods. Lauren pretended to be overwhelmed with gratitude, showing him more warmth and admiration each day. Everything was proceeding smoothly according to my plan, except Ryan, who was too sharp not to notice. What are you and Lauren plotting? He cornered me one evening, frowning. Why is she running to Wang's office every single day? We're just rehearsing, I mumbled, avoiding his eyes. Rehearsing? Ryan let out a cold laugh. He pinched my chin, forcing me to look at him. Do you think I'm stupid, Emma? I'm warning you. Don't mess around. Commissar Wang isn't someone you can handle. His tone was harsher than I had ever heard. I knew it wasn't anger. It was fear for us. Don't worry. We know our limits. Rising on my toes, I pressed a reassuring kiss to his lips. Trust me, okay? He held my gaze for a long time, then sighed heavily and pulled me into his arms. Promise me you'll be careful. I will. The final step, and the most dangerous one, was to get our hands on the snuff bottle. On the night before the gala, Lauren invited Wang to the rehearsal hall under the excuse of one last script check. The hall was empty, except for the two of them. Dressed in a pure white dress, Lauren looked like an ethereal fairy under the stage lights. She poured him tea, slipping in a heavy dose of sleeping pills. Wang drank it without suspicion, and soon slumped over the table, fast asleep. With trembling hands, Lauren reached into his pocket and pulled out the snuff bottle with the painted brow bird. Just as I had instructed, she didn't linger for a second. She ran straight out the back door, where I was already waiting. Got it. She shoved the bottle into my hand, her face pale, still shaking. I opened the lid carefully. Inside wasn't tobacco, but a tightly rolled strip of film. My heart nearly leapt out of my chest. We had found irrefutable proof. Sis-in-law, what now? Lauren whispered. Go home and wait for me. I grabbed her hand, and together we vanished into the night. The next evening, the gala opened as planned. Commissar Wang sat on the dais, laughing and chatting as if nothing had happened. He must have thought he'd simply drunk too much and dozed off the night before. He couldn't have imagined that his crimes were already in our hands. Halfway through the gala, Lauren stepped on stage for her solo dance, Ode to the Red Plum Blossom. Music filled the hall, and in her red dress, she twirled across the stage like a vision, breathtakingly beautiful. But just as the performance reached its climax, the massive curtain behind her suddenly flickered to life. Not with the prepared backdrop, but with blown-up photographs, images from the film strip, maps of the military district's defenses, specifications of critical weapons, lists of undercover agents. The entire hall erupted in chaos. Gasps filled the air as everyone froze in shock. The leaders on the dais all shot to their feet at once, their faces full of shock and fury. Commissar Wong's face, however, went pale as paper. He knew he had been exposed. Instinctively, he tried to flee, but it was too late. Security officers who had been lying in wait surged forward, pinning him hard to the ground. "Wang Jinwei, you are under arrest." Even as the cold handcuffs snapped around his wrists, he still looked stunned, as if he couldn't fathom how he had been discovered. He would never have imagined that the ones who toppled him were two women he had always dismissed as weak and powerless. The traitor Nightingale was finally caught, and the shadow hanging over the military district at last lifted. Lauren and I became heroes in one decisive stroke. Though we remained hidden figures behind the scenes, word of our deeds still spread quietly. My mother-in-law, Mrs. Zhao, clasped my hands with tears streaking her face. "Good child, such a good child. Our Liu family has wronged you." From then on, she never once gave me the cold shoulder again, treating me as though I were her own daughter. And Ryan looked at me with a fiery gaze I had never seen before, full of worship, pride, and love. "Emma, you really are my heroine." He scooped me up and spun me around the room like a fool, laughing uncontrollably. The crisis was over, and our love, tested in fire and blood, became unshakable. My clothing business also flourished. I was no longer satisfied with small-scale work. With the money I'd earned, I rented a storefront in the city and opened my own boutique. I named it Evening Breeze. On opening day, Ryan took leave from the army to stand proudly at the entrance in his crisp uniform, even prouder than I was. He held my hand and whispered in my ear, "Congratulations, sweetheart. From now on, you just stay beautiful, and I'll take care of making money and protecting our country." I laughed and gave his chest a playful punch. "You and that sweet tongue of yours." Looking at the man I had loved for 2 lifetimes and at the life we had built together, my eyes grew misty. It was all so good. To live again truly was a blessing. Not only had I changed my own fate, I had changed his too. At last, we could escape the shadows of betrayal and conspiracy and live a quiet, happy life. But I had rejoiced too soon. Just as everything was falling perfectly into place, someone I never expected appeared before me. It was Lily White. Wasn't she supposed to be in prison? How could she be out? She looked at me with a twisted smile, her eyes burning with hatred and madness. "Emma, if I can't live well, don't you dare think you can either." The moment I saw her, my blood seemed to freeze. How was she here? Hadn't she been sentenced to heavy prison time for leaking military secrets and causing deaths? She was dressed in tattered clothes, her hair yellowed and brittle, her face haggard. Long gone was the delicate beauty she once flaunted. But her eyes were sharp as poisoned blades, locking on to me with undisguised hatred. "How did you get out?" I instinctively stepped back, watching her warily. "How did I get out?" Lily let out a shrill, unhinged laugh. "Of course someone pulled me out. Emma, you never expected this, did you? You threw me into hell, but there are still people willing to drag me back out of it." My heart sank. To pull someone out of military prison, the backer had to be formidable. "What do you want?" I asked coldly. "What do I want?" Lily stepped closer, her smile twisting into something monstrous. "You ruined me. You destroyed my family. You left me in disgrace." "What do you think I want?" she hissed. "Of course I want you to die a miserable death." Before I could react, Lily suddenly pulled a gleaming dagger from behind her and lunged at me like a madwoman. "Go to hell!" My pupils shrank in terror. There was no time to dodge. Just as the blade was about to pierce me, a dark figure shot out from my side and shielded me with his body. It was Ryan. The sickening sound of metal piercing flesh echoed, and in an instant, blood spread across his uniform. "Ryan!" My scream tore through the air, my world spinning into chaos. Why, even after living a second life, had I still failed to change his fate of being wounded? Call an ambulance," I stammered, trembling uncontrollably. but Ryan gripped my hand, forcing a pale smile onto his face. "Don't be afraid, I'm fine. It's just a flesh wound." He hadn't even finished speaking before his strength gave out, and he collapsed in my arms. No. At the hospital, the surgery room light stayed on the entire night. I sat against the cold wall, my body trembling violently. In my past life, the last time I had seen him was in the morgue. Would I really have to watch him leave me again in this one? No. I refused to accept it. At dawn, the light finally went out. The doctor came out, exhausted, pulling off his mask. "He's out of danger." The blade missed his heart by barely an inch. Any closer, and not even the gods could have saved him. "You can go see him now." My knees nearly gave way beneath me. I stumbled into the ward and saw Ryan lying pale as paper on the bed, but his breathing was steady. At that moment, my tears burst free. He wasn't dead. He was still alive. Later, I learned the truth. Lily White had only been released on bail because she traded a secret in exchange for leniency. That so-called secret was the identity of Nightingale's superior, a deeper hidden spy codenamed the Boss. A far bigger fish. Lily had overheard this codename in prison and used it as a bargaining chip for her freedom. The first thing she did upon release was seek me out for revenge, but she hadn't expected it to end like this. She was arrested again. This time, with multiple charges stacked against her, the punishment awaiting her would be the harshest the law could deliver. Not long after, the Boss himself was also captured in a sweep. At last, the shadow that had hung over us was completely dispelled. Ryan's recovery took 3 whole months. During that time, I never left his side. I wiped his body, fed him, and kept him company. After surviving this trial of life and death, what we shared was no longer just love. It had become a bond carved into our very bones. On the day of his discharge, the sun was warm and bright. He stood tall in the new clothes I had bought for him, though the scar across his chest remained, a medal of honor for the life he had risked to protect me. "Emma," he whispered, lifting my hand to his lips for a kiss, "let's go home." "Yes," I answered with a smile. On the way back, he suddenly said, "Emma, once I'm fully healed, let's have another wedding." I blinked at him in surprise. "I want everyone to know you are my wife, the one I married with honor. I'll give you the grandest wedding this entire military district has ever seen." His eyes burned with sincerity and love. My vision blurred with tears. This man always loved me in the most clumsy, yet most genuine ways. A year later, our daughter was born. We named her Lucy. Ryan held the tiny, soft bundle in his arms. He was grinning like a 200-pound kid, fumbling clumsily as he changed our daughter's diaper, humming a lullaby that was completely off-key. Yet the tenderness in his eyes was so overwhelming it seemed ready to spill out. Watching this warm scene before me, I leaned against the doorframe, smiling with pure contentment. In my past life, I had lost everything. In this life, I had gained the whole world. Thank you, Ryan Carter. Thank you for loving me across 2 lifetimes. From now on, for the rest of our days, it's my